Rich in-laws mocked the poor groom, but when he spoke at the ceremony, everyone was surprised. Camila was about to marry Marcelo, a young man from a humble background but with a huge heart. Since she was little, she had dreamed of her wedding day, imagining a moment filled with love and happiness. However, as the day approached, her excitement mingled with an anxiety she couldn't ignore. Her family, wealthy and traditional, always had their own ideas about who was suitable for her. And Marcelo, with his simple clothes and humble life story, was seen as a true fish out of water. On the morning of the wedding, Camila's house was a whirlwind of activity. The preparations were extravagant, exotic flowers adorned every corner, the finest dishes were prepared by renowned chefs, and the scent of expensive perfumes filled the air. Camila's mother, Regina, was in her element, ensuring that everything was perfect, while her sister Jose, with her critical attitude, seized every opportunity to make sarcastic comments about the groom. "Look at that, Camila is marrying a prince who can't even pay for dinner," she said loudly, provoking laughter among the family guests. The disdain was evident on their faces, and each laugh felt like a stab to Camila's heart. As the house echoed with laughter and derisive chatter about Marcelo, the pressure on Camila grew. She felt trapped between her love for Marcelo and her family's expectations. The thought of giving up her dream of love for the wealth and influence of her family made her feel distressed. "Am I making the right choice?" she thought to herself, watching her family revel in the frivolities surrounding the wedding. The truth was that Camila knew Marcelo better than anyone. He was more than just a poor groom. He was a man with solid principles, a generous heart, and a determination that inspired her every day. He worked hard in a job that, while simple, kept him happy and proud. With his contagious smile, Marcelo always reminded her that true love was what really mattered. But with each malicious comment she heard, Camila's confidence began to erode. That day, as the hours dragged on until the ceremony, Camila found herself alone for a moment, reflecting on everything. The shadow of doubt and fear enveloped her, and she needed to make a decision. Walking through the garden that had been decorated for the occasion, she stopped to take a deep breath, allowing the scent of the flowers to calm her. The sun shone brightly, and butterflies danced around her as if encouraging her to follow her heart. In the end, she decided that she would not let her family's opinions prevent her from being happy. The love she felt for Marcelo was strong enough to withstand any storm. With this conviction in mind, she was ready to face whatever came, even if it meant confronting her family's disdain. As she re-entered the house, the atmosphere of superiority from her relatives was almost palpable. She headed to the mirror, adjusted her wedding dress, and looked at her reflection. The woman staring back was determined. Today, she was not just Camila, the wealthy daughter. She was a bride ready to join the man who truly made her happy, regardless of her family's opinion. With her head held high, she prepared for what would be a day of love, defying the expectations and prejudices surrounding her. Meanwhile, the ceremony was drawing closer, and Camila felt that by taking that step toward the altar, she was not only uniting with Marcelo but also challenging a whole system that taught her to value money over love. The day promised to be unforgettable, and she was determined to make it so. One morning, Camila walked with a serious expression toward her father's office, a space that had always been a place for important decisions and discussions. The morning light filtered through the large windows, illuminating the luxurious surroundings, filled with dark wooden furniture and artworks adorning the walls. But on that day, the atmosphere felt heavy. Camila's heart raced, and the feeling of anxiety accompanied her with each step. As she opened the door, she saw her family gathered around the imposing table. Her father, Dom Felipe, sat in an elegant chair, with a rigid posture and a fixed gaze. He was a man of strong presence, used to having his wishes fulfilled. Beside him, Regina, her mother, wore a look of disdain, while Jose, her sister, crossed her arms, waiting for her sister to submit to the family's will. Their looks were like sharp blades, ready to cut through any hope Camila might have had. "Camila, you know this guy isn't right for you," they said in unison, as if it were a mantra echoing in her head. These words were a repetition of everything that had been said in recent weeks. To them, Marcelo was just a poor groom, a boy who didn't fit into the world of wealth and status that Camila's family cultivated so carefully. Their contempt for him was clear, and every word from her parents seemed like another attempt to convince her to give up her love. Camila felt the pressure mounting, as if she were trapped in an invisible snare. She knew their intentions were good, that they wanted the best for her. But the truth was that what they considered best didn't include the man who made her feel alive. The love she shared with Marcelo was deep, and she was willing to fight for it, even if it meant defying her family's wishes. Taking a deep breath, Camila tried to find the right words to defend herself. But you don't know Marcelo like I do, she began, her voice trembling slightly. He's kind, hardworking, and has a huge heart. He makes me happy. But as she spoke, the expressions of disappointment on their faces became more pronounced. Dom Felipe, with a severe look, interrupted her. Don't be swayed by naive romanticism, Camila. You're about to make a decision that could ruin your life. The feeling of despair grew within her. Her father's words hit her like arrows, but instead of letting them bring her down, she remembered all the times Marcelo had stood by her side, supporting her and making her believe in her dreams. He was not just a poor boy, he was a dreamer, someone who also desired a better future and was willing to fight for it. I can't give up what I feel, Dad. Love is priceless, she said, trying to convey the sincerity of her heart. The room fell silent, and Dom Felipe's gaze, which had been as hard as stone, seemed to waver for a brief moment. But soon, the contempt returned to dominate the atmosphere, like a dark cloud that doesn't easily dissipate. Regina and Jose exchanged knowing glances, and Regina, with a soft but firm voice, said, Camila, you have to understand that life is more than just love. It's about stability, security. We cannot allow you to throw yourself into an adventure with someone who has nothing to offer. Think about your future. Frustration took hold of Camila. She wanted to scream, to make them see what she saw. But instead, she felt tears threatening to slip down her face. The internal struggle between her love for Marcelo and the pressure from her family was a devastating conflict. How could she explain that the love she felt for Marcelo was the only stability she truly desired? That her heart had found a home? With one last deep breath, Camila knew the decision was in her hands. Life was made of choices, and she was about to make the biggest one. Looking into her father's eyes, who had always been her hero, she decided she would not be swayed by the pressure. True love deserved a chance, and above all, she was ready to fight for it. After the heated discussion, Camila went up to her room, sadness consuming her like a heavy cloak. Each step felt harder, as if she were walking along a path strewn with thorns. As soon as she closed the door, the outside world faded away, and loneliness filled the space. The walls of her room, which used to reflect moments of happiness and dreams, now seemed to echo her fears and insecurities. Sitting on the bed, she let the tears stream down her face. Each drop was an expression of her pain, of her broken heart. Camila felt torn, as if she were caught between two worlds, one filled with love and hope beside Marcelo, and the other, laden with expectations and disappointment from her wealthy family. Her father's voice, her mother's disdainful expressions, and her sister's coldness echoed in her mind, creating a whirlwind of emotions. As she looked at the ceiling, memories of happy moments with Marcelo began to flood her mind. The exchanged smiles, the laughter during their walks, the deep conversations under the starry sky. With him, everything seemed possible, and life was filled with vibrant colors. But on the other hand, her family's cruel words felt like they were trying to extinguish that light, turning her dreams into shadows. In a burst of impulse, as if she needed a breath amid the emotional storm, Camila grabbed her phone. Her hand trembled slightly as she searched for Marcelo's name in her contact list. The call connected quickly, and before he could even say hello, Camila let slip the words she had held in her heart. I love you, Marcelo, she said through sobs, seeking comfort in her fiancé's voice. On the other end of the line, Marcelo sensed the fragility in her voice. Camila, my love, what happened? He was immediately concerned, his calm and welcoming voice contrasting with the chaos she was experiencing. The way he called her always had a soothing effect, as if he were a safe haven amid the storm. Camila couldn't hold back her tears. It's my family, Marcelo. They don't believe in us. They think you're not good enough. I feel so lost. The sadness in her voice was palpable, and she feared that these words might push him away, but at the same time, she needed him to know the internal struggle she was facing. Listen, Camila, Marcelo said, with the firmness of someone willing to fight for her. I understand that your family doesn't accept me, but what matters is how we feel. Don't let them decide what you should do with your life. True love is what binds us, and nothing can change that. The assurance in his words wrapped around Camila like a warm embrace. She could picture his face, the sincerity in his eyes, and it made her feel a glimmer of hope rising within her. But what if they never accept you? What if I have to choose between you and my family? The thought terrified her, as if she were about to enter a battle where she didn't want to emerge victorious. Camila, I don't want you to choose between us, Marcelo replied, his voice now gentle, almost a whisper. I just want you to be happy. And if that means facing your family, then I'm by your side. I will always be. We will get through this together, just like we always have. Marcello's words were a balm for the open wound in her heart. She felt a deep connection, a certainty that with him, she could face any challenge. The sadness began to dissipate, making way for determination. "Thank you, Marcello. You always know what to say," she replied, her voice a bit stronger. "I'm here, Camilla." "Forever," he promised, and in that moment, she knew she needed to fight for the love she felt. The future would be uncertain, but with Marcello by her side, she felt ready to face any storm that came her way. The tears were still streaming down her face, but now they were tears of hope, not despair. She was determined to make her family understand that true love was worth it, and that her happiness was the priority. On the other end of the line, Marcello heard the pain in her voice and the urgency of her heart. The sound of her tears reverberated like an echo in the solitude of his room, and it hit him with undeniable force. He knew that the love he felt for Camilla was powerful, and in that moment more than ever, he felt the need to be her safe harbor. "I will do everything to make you happy, Camilla," he promised, with a conviction that could move mountains. These words were not just a response, they were a sacred vow, a commitment he was willing to honor every step of the way. Marcello had grown up in a humble neighborhood, facing his own battles throughout life. He knew what it was like to fight against adversity and feel the weight of disdain. Now, it would be no different. What was at stake was far greater than he could ever imagine. It was Camilla's happiness and the future they dreamed of together. As he spoke, his determination grew like a burning flame. "I will show everyone that we are meant for each other. They may not understand now, but I will fight for us," he continued, with a passion that pulsed in every syllable. Camilla needed to know that he was by her side, ready to face any storm that life might send their way. Marcello remembered how it all began between them, the secret meetings in the park, the laughter they shared while walking hand in hand, and the silent moments when they simply looked at each other and knew they had found something special in one another. That connection was real, and he wouldn't let Camilla's family's prejudice tear them apart. He envisioned himself at the wedding ceremony, in front of everyone, and a wave of emotion washed over him. He wanted her to be proud of him. He wanted the disdainful looks from her family to turn into respect. With each passing day, his determination grew stronger, and Marcello felt he had the responsibility to become the man Camilla deserved. "I will work hard, Camilla. I will strive to show them that true love can overcome any barrier," he said, his voice filled with hope. "And together, we will build a life full of joy, even if that means facing difficult challenges." That night, as the moon shone brightly in the sky, Marcello sat at his dining table, surrounded by papers and plans. He began to sketch out his ideas, focusing on how he could give Camilla the future she deserved. Determination pulsed within him, and every word written was a promise that he would not give up easily. He knew he needed not only courage but also a plan. Days passed, and the pressure from Camilla's family continued to grow. As the wedding preparations advanced, Marcello did not let himself be shaken. He dedicated himself to his work and began to piece together the steps that would lead him to a place where he could feel worthy of her love. He understood the value of hard work and was prepared to sacrifice whatever was necessary to achieve his goal. One night, after a long day at work, he sat on his couch and thought about Camilla. Her smile lit up his mind, and the thought of losing that filled him with anxiety. "I need to become the man she believes I am," he said to himself, his heart racing. And so, with the strength of true love, Marcello decided that he would do everything to win not only Camilla's heart but also her family's respect. With each dawn, Marcello prepared himself for his moment to shine. He was ready to show everyone that, even coming from humble beginnings, he could be the man that Camilla deserved. In that moment, he convinced himself that with love, determination, and courage, they could face any challenge life threw their way. Finally, the long-awaited wedding day arrived. The sun shone brightly in the sky, casting a golden light over the stunning setting that had been prepared. The ceremony was filled with flowers in vibrant hues, from delicate shades of pink to immaculate whites, creating a fairy tale atmosphere. The chairs were adorned with elegant bows, and a gentle breeze seemed to dance among the guests, all impeccably dressed and ready to celebrate the union of Camilla and Marcello. Camilla, in her stunning wedding dress, looked like a true princess. The flowing fabric of the dress reflected the light, and every detail, from the meticulously crafted embroidery to the veil covering her face, seemed to tell a story of love and hope. However, behind her radiant smile, a storm of anxiety consumed her. Each step toward the altar felt heavier than the last, and her heart raced in a frantic rhythm, struggling against the weight of her emotions. She knew she was about to take a step that would change their lives forever, but the uncertainty about her family's acceptance of Marcello weighed heavily on her mind. On the other hand, Marcello, in his simple suit, felt like a fish out of water. He had always been a man of humble roots, and even amidst the opulence of the setting, his authenticity shone like a beacon. As the guests in their luxurious suits and dresses looked at him with disdain and suspicion, he held his head high, determined not to let it affect him. He knew he was there for love, and that love was stronger than any prejudice or disdain he might face. The presence of Camilla by his side was all he truly desired. As the soft music filled the air, Camilla began to walk toward the altar, her steps steady, but her mind swirling with uncertainties. She felt the gazes of her family, especially her father, Dom Felipe, who watched her with a mix of disappointment and concern. Regina, her mother, and José, her sister, shared forced smiles that were almost mocking, as if trying to disguise their disdain for the man they deemed unworthy of a daughter from such a wealthy family. As Camilla approached the altar, Marcelo felt his heart race. He could see the sparkle in her eyes, and it encouraged him. He knew that what was at stake was more than just a wedding, it was proof that their love could overcome all obstacles. He was determined not to let others' judgments affect him. What mattered was the love they shared, and he was ready to defend it. Finally, as they reached the altar, Camilla and Marcelo exchanged meaningful glances. In that moment, everything around them seemed to fade away. They were immersed in a world where only the two of them mattered. The officiant began to lead the ceremony, and each word seemed to echo in their hearts. Camilla squeezed Marcelo's hand, and he responded with an encouraging smile, his strength and determination radiating toward her. The promises of love and fidelity were spoken, and each word that came from their mouths was filled with emotion. Camilla felt tears threatening to spill, but they were tears of joy. Finally, she was there, doing what she desired most, joining Marcelo in a sacred bond, defying all the adversities that had come their way. However, when it was Marcelo's turn to speak, he felt the pressure mount. It was his chance to show everyone that he was not just the poor groom, but a man who loved deeply and was willing to fight for what he believed in. He took a deep breath, looked at Camilla, and with a firm voice began to speak. "Today, I commit to loving Camilla with all my heart. I may not be rich in material possessions, but I am rich in love and dedication. You may see me as an outsider, but I am a man willing to give everything for her. I promise to honor and respect every day of our lives together. You may have your opinions, but what truly matters is what we have for each other." At that moment, a heavy silence filled the room. The guests' faces shifted from mockery to surprise. Camilla looked at Marcelo with admiration, her heart overflowing with love and gratitude. She knew he was the man who truly understood and loved her. The looks of disdain began to transform, and in an instant, Marcelo's determination lit up the room. He not only challenged expectations but somehow earned the respect of those who had previously underestimated him. Emotion swept over the atmosphere, and in that ceremony of love, everyone could see that what truly matters is not what we have, but who we are and the love we are willing to share. During the ceremony, as the priest spoke about love, commitment, and the importance of marriage, the tension in the air was palpable. The guests sat in carefully arranged rows, their faces expressing a mix of curiosity and judgment. The soft music that had previously filled the space now seemed distant, muffled by the murmurs of discontent from some. Camilla stood at the altar, her heart racing at a frantic pace, but her gaze was fixed on Marcelo. She could feel the strength of the love that united them, a bond that seemed to shine brightly even in the face of her family's criticism and disdainful looks. The light emanating from him illuminated her soul, and in an instant, she recalled all the moments they had shared together. The laughter, the long conversations under the stars, and the dreams they had exchanged. The pressure of her family's disapproval weighed on her chest, but looking at Marcelo brought her a comforting warmth. He was her refuge, her anchor amid the storm brewing around them. When it was time for the vows, all eyes turned to Marcelo. He could feel the growing anticipation, as if everyone in the room was holding their breath. Anxiety tightened his stomach, but he knew this was the moment that would define not only their future but also who he was as a man. He took a deep breath, filling his lungs with the determination that had always guided him. Now was the time to show everyone that true love is not measured by money or status, but by commitment and sincerity. Marcelo turned to Camilla, their eyes meeting in a magical moment. It was as if the world around them had vanished, and for a brief moment, there were only the two of them. He remembered how he felt when he first saw her, like a ray of sunshine that entered his life and transformed it forever. With that in mind, he began to speak, his voice clear and full of emotion. "Camilla, from the first day I met you, my heart found a home. I may not be rich in material possessions, but I am incredibly rich in love for you. I promise to support you in every dream you have, in every challenge we face. You are my inspiration, and I commit to doing everything I can to make you happy, not just today, but every day of our lives." Marcelo's words echoed throughout the room, cutting through the tension like a sharp knife. The murmurs that had previously filled the air were silenced by the sincerity of his promises. Camila, with tears of emotion shining in her eyes, noticed something change in the expressions of the guests. Some began to lean forward, captivated by the words of love flowing from him. Others, who had once been skeptical, now seemed reflective, perhaps reconsidering what truly mattered. "I promise to be your partner in all situations, in joy and in sorrow. I promise to laugh with you in happy times and to stand by your side in difficulties. I want to build a life with you, where love is our greatest wealth. Together, we are stronger, and together, we will face any challenge the world throws our way." Every word from Marcelo was like an electric current, vibrating through the air and touching the hearts of everyone present. Camila felt the emotion growing within her, a mix of joy and pride. She knew this wasn't just a speech, but a true commitment, a declaration that spoke louder than any prejudice her family might hold. The room was in absolute silence. The looks that had once been judgmental now reflected admiration. Even Dom Felipe, her father, who had always been so critical, seemed to hesitate, his expression slowly changing as he listened to the true love unfolding before him. It was a moment of transformation, not just for Camila and Marcelo, but for all who witnessed the strength of that love. As Marcelo finished his vows, Camila felt the tension surrounding her beginning to dissipate. He had shown himself to be a worthy man, capable of fighting for what he loved. Her heart was bursting with happiness, and she knew in that moment she had made the right choice. "Camila, I love you, and I always will. You are my everything, and I am eternally grateful to have you in my life." Applause began to echo, followed by tears of joy from many guests. Their love was triumphing over prejudice, and on that day, Camila and Marcelo were ready to face the world together, stronger than ever. As Marcelo began to speak, a special energy filled the room. The murmurs that had previously occupied the space dissipated, giving way to a palpable anticipation. He adjusted his simple tie, a gesture that seemed to symbolize his humility, and took a deep breath. With a firm yet gentle voice, he shared his story, a narrative full of challenges and triumphs that had shaped who he was. "I grew up in a neighborhood where difficulties were a constant. Every day was a struggle, but it was also an opportunity to learn and grow. My father worked long hours as a mechanic, while my mother took care of us, always with a smile, even when things got tough." The emotion built in his voice, and the guests began to lean forward, captivated by his heartfelt words. He continued, "In school, I often felt invisible, a boy with big dreams but few resources to achieve them. Even so, I always believed that a person's true worth isn't in what they have, but in what they carry inside. It's character, kindness, and the ability to love that truly matter. As I grew up, I learned that a heart full of love can overcome any obstacle." Marcelo paused, looking directly into Camila's eyes, a glimmer of tenderness lighting up his face. Camila didn't just choose a name, she chose a heart. She saw in me not just who I am, but who I can become. And the love we share is more powerful than any material wealth. His words resonated in the air, prompting those present to reflect on what they truly valued in their lives. The audience was completely absorbed, and the room was so silent that one could hear Marcelo's soft heartbeat. He continued, "I am grateful for every challenge I faced because they brought me to this moment, to you, Camila. Every tear, every hardship has taught me to cherish what we have even more. When I look at you, I see not just the woman I love, but the best part of myself. You inspire me to be a better man every day." The emotion in his words touched everyone's hearts deeply, and some began to wipe away tears. He spoke about the little things that meant so much, like the nights they spent together daydreaming and planning a future filled with hope and love. He described how her laughter brightened even the darkest days and how every hug seemed to heal his wounds. "I know many here may see me as the poor groom, but I ask you to look beyond that. What truly matters is that my love for Camila is deep and genuine. And that is the wealth I bring to this marriage. A heart full of love, a resilient spirit, and the determination to build a future together." With every word, Marcelo was not only defending his love for Camila but also challenging the prejudices surrounding her family. He was showing that a person's worth is determined by who they are inside, not by what they possess outside. The murmurs of the audience began to transform into applause, and even the most skeptical gazes started to soften. Marcelo ended his speech with a simple yet powerful statement. "I promise to love you, Camila, every day of our lives, no matter what happens. Together, we will build a love that will resonate far beyond the walls of this place." The room erupted in warm applause, and even the previously stern faces began to light up. Camila felt as if she were floating, a mix of pride and love washing over her. In that moment, she knew she had made the right choice. Their love, challenging and true, was about to triumph over all adversities. What began as laughter and whispers of disdain quickly transformed into stunned silence. The atmosphere, which had previously pulsed with malicious comments and despicable giggles, was now filled with palpable tension, as if everyone were holding their breath at once. Camila's in-laws, who had previously looked at Marcelo with expressions of contempt, were now perplexed, their faces marked by disbelief. It was as if his voice had broken a spell, finally allowing them to see the man standing before them. Marcelo's words reverberated through the room, each syllable carrying an emotional weight that settled in the hearts of everyone present. He spoke with such sincerity that even those who had doubted his worthiness began to reconsider their opinions. The laughter that had echoed like a distant memory was now merely a whisper, replaced by looks of evaluation and in some cases, even regret. The in-laws, initially so confident in their superiority, exchanged nervous glances. Dom Felipe, who had always considered himself the patriarch of the family, felt a wave of discomfort. He who had looked at Marcelo for so long as nothing more than a poor groom, now found himself forced to confront the depth and authenticity the young man displayed. With each word spoken, the image he had of the boy faded, giving way to a new understanding. Regina, Camila's mother, felt a strange mix of shame and admiration rising within her. She had spoken ill of her daughter's fiancé, but upon hearing his passionate declaration, she felt touched by an unexpected emotion. The feelings bubbling in her chest were a whirlwind of conflict. How could she have underestimated someone so capable of expressing what truly matters in life? José, Camila's sister, who had always supported her family's view of her sister's relationship, now found herself in a dilemma. The coldness and disdain that had previously guided her were dissipating, making way for a reflection on what she truly valued. As Marcelo spoke, his words resonated not only in the minds but also in the souls of everyone present. As the tension built, the audience seemed united in a moment of epiphany. The looks of disdain began to transform into expressions of curiosity. The hands that had previously been crossed in disapproval were now open, almost pleading for understanding. It was as if, for one magical moment, everyone was connected by the same feeling, the search for true love and respect. The stunned silence turned into a gentle murmur, an echo of voices that began to discuss among themselves. The conversations that had once been harsh were now filled with questions. Why have we never looked beyond appearances? What truly matters in a relationship? Could Marcelo be the right man for Camila? The atmosphere changed completely. The love radiating from Marcelo, strong and genuine, not only touched Camila's heart but began to melt the barriers her family had built. What had once seemed like a ceremony filled with disdain was now transforming into a moment of recognition and reflection. And so, in that brightly lit room, where flowers adorned every corner and the guests watched intently, Marcelo was not just marrying Camila, he was also striving to earn everyone's respect, demonstrating that the true worth of a person cannot be measured by their origin but by the love and sincerity they carry in their hearts. Dom Felipe's eyes were wide, as if awakening from a disturbing dream. His imposing posture, which had previously conveyed authority, was now filled with confusion and doubt. Beside him, Regina and José looked dazed, their faces reflecting a mix of surprise and contemplation. The silence that had once reigned, filled with giggles and sarcastic comments, had transformed into a tense atmosphere of anticipation. As Marcelo continued to speak with growing confidence, the expressions of disdain that had previously dominated the room slowly began to shift. What had been a facade of superiority was now revealing unexpected vulnerability. Dom Felipe, who had always seen himself as the judge of worth and character, began to realize that true wealth did not lie in material possessions but in the essence of people. Marcelo's courage and sincerity were creating cracks in the armor he had built throughout his life. Regina, who had always defended the idea that Camila deserved someone of the same lineage, was overtaken by a wave of shame. Marcelo's words not only touched her but forced her to reconsider her deeply ingrained beliefs. She was not just a mother, she was a woman who needed to confront what truly mattered, her daughter's happiness. Her gaze, once filled with disapproval, was now softening, revealing a glimpse of empathy. José, Camila's sister, began shaking her head in disbelief. How could she have been so blind? Marcelo's courage was palpable, and his sincerity was a breath of fresh air in a previously suffocating room. The groom, who had once seemed insignificant, was now seen in a new light, a young man worthy, courageous, and full of love, willing to face not only life's difficulties but also the prejudices of a wealthy family. The respect for him grew instantly, causing hardened hearts to begin melting like ice under the sun. All eyes turned to Dom Felipe, waiting for him to be the first to speak. The anticipation was almost palpable, as if the room were holding its breath. With visible effort, the old patriarch finally managed to relax his shoulders, a gesture that in other times would have seemed impossible. He was allowing himself to feel, and this both frightened and liberated him at the same time. And then, in that moment of transformation, Marcelo paused. He was not just sharing his story, he was also opening his heart. The tears forming in Camila's eyes shone with a new glimmer of hope. The strength of the love that united them was so intense that it seemed to fill the entire room, a comforting warmth that dissipated the chill of distrust that had lingered before. Marcelo's gaze at Camila was one of pure adoration. He saw not just a bride but the woman who inspired him to be better. That connection, now recognized and accepted, began to spread like wildfire in a dry field. The guests, once skeptical, began to exchange meaningful glances. The transformation was contagious, and a murmur of approval started to ripple through the room. The glances that had once been filled with judgment were now complicit. The change was undeniable. And as Marcelo's words still echoed in the air, everyone began to ask themselves, what really matters in life? That day was not just about a wedding, it was about a new perspective on love, respect, and the true worth of people. Camila and Marcelo's story was about to be told in a way that would never be forgotten, not just by them, but by all who witnessed that magical transformation. And as tears of joy began to trickle down Regina's face and Jose's shy smile widened, the entire room knew that something truly special was happening there. At the end of the ceremony, as the echo of the priest's blessing still resonated off the flower-adorned walls, the laughter that had once filled the air silenced, giving way to a new atmosphere of respect and admiration. What had been a room full of skeptical glances and malicious whispers was now illuminated by a soft and warm light. Marcelo's sincere words still lingered in everyone's memory, creating a palpable connection among the attendees. Marcelo and Camila looked at each other with renewed love, as if each had rediscovered themselves in the heart of the other. Their gaze, filled with promises and shared dreams, reflected a strength that could not be shaken by prejudice or social differences. Camila felt a wave of happiness flood her chest, while Marcelo, in his simplicity, shone brighter than any jewel that could adorn him. As the ceremony came to a close, the celebration that followed was an explosion of colors and sounds, filled with laughter and dancing. People began to gather in groups, their faces illuminated by genuine smiles. The music started playing, and the cheerful notes enveloped the room, making everyone rise from their seats. What had once been a tense and uncomfortable event was now transforming into a vibrant party. The guests, who had been reluctant, began to let themselves be carried away by the contagious energy of the moment. Dom Felipe, who had remained reserved, finally joined the dance, swaying his hips hesitantly but with a genuine smile on his lips. Regina and Jose exchanged glances, laughing at the patriarch's transformation. The light and festive atmosphere seemed to have broken all barriers, and people began to mingle, united by the joy of Camila and Marcelo's union. Their wedding not only celebrated love but also became a symbol of acceptance and unity. Friends and family, who had once seen the differences between social classes, now intertwined in lively conversations, sharing stories and laughter. There was a new understanding in the air, a realization that despite their differences, they were all human beings with feelings and stories worth telling. As the night progressed, Marcelo and Camila found themselves in a quiet corner of the party, away from the noise and bustle. They looked at each other, and in that moment, the world around them seemed to disappear. "Look at us," Marcelo said, a radiant smile lighting up his face. "I never imagined we'd make it this far." "I always believed in us," Camila replied, her voice soft and filled with emotion. "Our love is stronger than any challenge we've faced." She moved closer, and Marcelo hugged her tightly, as if the whole world were encapsulated in that moment, wrapped in the beauty of the connection they shared. Their love story not only overcame social barriers but also united two families in ways no one could have imagined. Mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, who had once opposed this union, now toasted to love, exchanging glances of respect and acceptance. True love, after all, is more powerful than any bank account. And so, amid laughter and dancing, under a starry sky, Camila and Marcelo celebrated not just their union, but also the transformation their love brought to the world around them. It was a new beginning, not just for them but for all who learned that true wealth lies in the ability to love and accept. On that magical night, love triumphed, and everyone present knew they had witnessed something extraordinary, a love that transcended prejudices and united hearts. It was the story of Marcello and Camilla, a modern fairy tale promising to be told for generations, inspiring others to believe in the power of love.